So I'm more optimistic than Dan. Dan, by the way, is more optimistic than most of the sell side. I think that, and I want to pick up, I love Dan's work, I want to pick up on the concept of super cycle, which undoubtedly will be one of the themes that we're going to hear going into 5G. As a quick aside, the first year of 5G for the iPhone will be a disappointment for investors. I think that ultimately this is a massive opportunity for Apple, a huge play on 5G, but it's going to take time for the networks to roll out coverage. But I want to go back to the phrase super cycle. That to me is really the core of how most investors still think largely about the Apple story. Is this, you kind of own it going into big cycles, and I think that is in part what is moving the stock higher. But to answer your question, where I think this can go, I think that this ultimately can be a $350 or $400 stock. And I base that on a belief that we're going to gravitate over the next 2 years to a view that this is more of a consumer tech staples company growing much faster than companies like Coca-Cola and Procter & Gamble, and should deserve a multiple closer to 25 or 30 times. And I understand that is a departure from this super cycle view over the last decade in covering Apple. But I think ultimately wearables, services, this whole kind of symphony of products working together is going to influence investors to rate this higher over time.
Gene, if the 5G iPhone super cycle is a disappointment, arguably the 5G rollout in the U.S. is going to be a disappointment, right? I mean, that's the main device that a lot of people are expecting are going to sell this network. Is it that you think that Apple's not going to have the software and services ready in 2020 to entice people to buy a phone like that that's a 2021 story?
I need to be clear because the word disappointment is a important word, and I chose that wisely. Ultimately, is that the stock is going to move higher next year. I think that this is going to be one of the best performers, if not the top tech performer next year as well. So I just want to be clear about that. I think the hype around 5G is going to grow. I also want to answer your question is that this is not an Apple-related problem. The disappointment is, I think, largely on the shoulders of the carriers who have talked, I think, a lot about the 75% coverage by the end of next year. I think that is optimistic at the best case. And so as I kind of fast forward, there'll be 5 iPhones next year. I think the stock continues to move higher, but investors should have a sober view about how that first year, this would be calendar 2021 largely, that first year of 5G sales. The good news is it's going to happen. We will get an incredible lift in iPhone. I'm reluctant to use the phrase super cycle, but we will get a massive lift over the next few years. It's just investors need to be patient in that first year because the coverage won't be there.